In the previous episodes, we witnessed the rise of Cyrus, a child who survived death, a young rebel who toppled Astyages, a conqueror who entered Babylon without bloodshed, and a liberator who carved freedom into history. But the story of Cyrus is not only about victories in war, it is also about what came after, how an empire was built, not by fire and sword, but by roads, cities, and laws. When the dust of Babylon's conquest had settled, Cyrus turned to something greater, creating order in the vast lands under his rule. From the mountains of Persia to the valleys of the Nile, from the Aegean coast to the far borders near India. This was no ordinary kingdom. This was the first true empire of the world. And to hold it together, Cyrus created something new, something the world had never seen before. He built a network of roads, known later as the Royal Road, a path stretching thousands of kilometers, crossing rivers, mountains, and deserts. Along this road, riders carried messages sealed with the king's mark. From Susa to Sardis, from one end of the empire to the other, a message could travel in days, not months. And people would say in wonder, nothing moves faster than the messengers of the king. Trade flourished. Imagine a caravan of camels loaded with spices from India, silk from Bactria, and jewels from the east. They crossed safely, passing soldiers who guarded the way, stopping at stations where food, water, and shelter were ready. For the first time, merchants felt that the world was connected. But Cyrus did not only build roads, he built cities. Pasargadae, his first capital, a city of gardens and palaces where water flowed through stone channels and flowers bloomed even in the desert. In the heart of the city stood a white limestone palace, tall columns rising into the sky, carved with lions and winged guardians. And nearby, a simple yet majestic tomb was prepared, not of gold or jewels, but of stone. Cyrus wanted to rest forever, not as a god, but as a man who lived for justice. He also gave freedom to local rulers. Each land had its own governor, but they were bound by one law, the law of justice. The Lydians in the west kept their traditions. The Egyptians worshipped their gods. The Babylonians still celebrated in their temples. No people were forced to abandon who they were. This was Cyrus's genius. He did not erase cultures, he connected them. And stories spread across the world. In Greece, thinkers whispered his name with respect. Herodotus, the father of history, would later write of him as the noble king. In distant lands, people called him the father, not the conqueror. Meanwhile, Cyrus never stopped moving. He marched east, beyond the great mountains, where fierce tribes tested his strength. He marched west to the shores of the Aegean, where he faced the proud Lydian king Croesus, the richest man alive. And when Croesus was defeated, Cyrus did not kill him. Instead, he kept him alive as an advisor in his court. The world was astonished. What king spares the life of his enemy and turns him into a friend? It was this mercy, this vision, that bound the empire together. Imagine the scene. An old farmer in Egypt tilling the land of the Nile, a merchant in Babylon selling fabrics in the market, a soldier in Persia guarding the mountain passes. Different lands, different tongues, yet all under one banner, all trusting the justice of one man. This was not the empire of fear, it was the empire of order, the empire of Cyrus. And as night fell over the royal gardens of Pasargadae, Cyrus would walk among the trees, silent, thoughtful. He was not just building power for himself. He was shaping a world where nations could live side by side. Today, thousands of years later, The stones of his palaces may be broken, the gardens may be dust. But the idea he built, unity without tyranny, diversity without oppression, still lives on. For Cyrus was more than a king. He was a bridge between East and West, between conqueror and liberator, between past and future. And through the whispers of history, his voice still seems to say, "Empires fall, but justice is eternal."